Mic. Get closer to the mic.
What?
Get closer to the mic.
Oh. Good. Back up.
You're good.
Acceptable.
Yeah.
Acceptable. Alright. Even the moon. 1. I am walking down the street without end, following the line of roadway lamps that blank each other out with perspective, that disappear every few miles when the road takes itself down into a valley town, leaving behind items deemed not worth carrying after all this time. Tough-coated stable horses and semi-trucks, their perpetually left open doors buffeted by coarse winds, rusted by heavy dews of morning, which are so typical of this place. Oh, the lights so low and irregular, anemone red, close enough to pluck from the ironwood rafters of night, as if the rudely cut plank of the sky and the moon, its misshapen carving, have always hanged from these time-sagged porches and intricate eaves. The moon's empty face hums no louder than the single dam of rainwater pouring over the gutters and downspouts, making everything shimmer and drip to the melodies of starlight. 2 girls, small, and unadulterated in their ankle-length pleated skirts, respond in giggled refrains about the pleasures of earth, about the tan globe in their living room, as if traversing the world were something one could only simply do on foot. I am walking between the rows of houses with my arms outstretched, fingers extended, my overactive wrist veins violating to the rushings of demanding blushes of air, together calling forth a deeper color from my palms. I make my way back down the road, considered worth carrying. I am sitting in the kitchen window, waiting patiently for the one night to end that outlived my memory of that flared substance of day. I wait for morning. Morning does not come. The stars and organ-backed choirs of night keep me wrapped, though I keep company with a Macedonian woman who speaks the cruelties of plains, how the ocean is as much a deterrent as it is a haven for the tearful in the items they cast aside, how someday my calloused and greased, scarred hands will feel light reflecting off cool waters, who, still hysterical over the draw of the moon, nonetheless greet the rippled shadows of shaking hands. The knots riddling my body will sort themselves out, disbanding into the unforgivable depths of night. I will smile instead of simply smirking. Even the moon is oblonged by fatigue, throwing itself sideways in exhaustion, deafened by hours, the songs of rooftops and fire escapes, tuneless, startling, the source of our torpor. Someone tried to rename morning, as if morning applied only to the rising sun, not a span of hours. Failure takes him. His voice, eyes remaining closed as they have always been. He cannot sleep or stay awake any longer. Suddenly, apricot ravines stagger between the steel rails outside the window, elongating like long lines of desert fires, cascading over the sill, first warming our legs and strengthening our chests. Orange rifts are a sign of life. From the back of the room walks a man who has carved out his heart with a cleaver. He moves purposefully towards the street, heading east towards the Esplanade, his hands outstretched and dripping, offering the splurting muscle to the conflagration that blazes awake from behind the ocean and chars the night. The ocean and chars everything, and I forgot to carry it. I got two. This one's called Verlaine Jacks. Winter swept her woolen cloak across late October's leaves, dragging them into piles and heaps along building sides and into city gutters. An eerie trumpet call plays over the squall battlefields of Poughkeepsie, and fireflies daze into death's hibernation. She smiles through long black rivers of mascara that drive down her cheeks, and sings the procession of weary automobiles that follow her train of fog. November sloshed the breeze. Her husband, tight on absinthe, ensconced himself in an armchair and read Edna St. Vincent Millay to the window pane. The pine grove in the front of the house couldn't stand the iron drapes of sleet, and with the scattering of birds and a large crack, Verlaine Jacks died reading about bears.
Yeah.
It's called Afternoon Eventide. 1. Not to be outdone by calamitous weather, I walked toward the concrete shanty on Slayhead. The western windows of this decagon, blanched by a weedy light, reluctantly uncover their coveted sea glass that makes the wall a disco of slow rusting greens. Even this would become monotonous. In time, distant islands turn to lumps of ashen coal, patiently suffering their own heat deaths. The glass, translucent, bothersome, for its projections are no longer spectacular enough. We are distracted from these experiences for having denied them the impertinence in which they thrive. There are patches. I had this shit in my pocket for all day. There are patches across the peninsula. There are patches across the peninsula where the physical sensation of wind drops. In leaves, only the signature orchestra tuning of grass combing over quilt-work hills. Dusk brings with her the low-lit Atlantic's auditory hallucinations. River run, birds flounder the creeks of sky. The clumsier ones stay in the negative space of winded clouds, unaware that cotton masses are nothing but something to pass through. A dark leak of elderberry light marks the final trace of the sun's collapse. It mirrors the tide and transforms the seabirds' cries into a cacophony of voices we barely remember, but for reason which eludes us, we refuse to deny. I stand thigh-deep in creature night water while the floodlight up behind me beckons the lighthouse. Their dance moves are shy, but make themselves known across the slack tide that Orion's orange and lime. Summer's peripatetic winds forever move from channel to channel. It is time for elsewheres. And again, the uncharacteristic bashfulness of night snuffs all anticipations of a real tango. A club of seals surround me while the algal bloom glows in with the impending tide. The veil is weak tonight, and beneath a hazel moon I walk the shoreline. Crustaceans trail the fences. I reach the spot where the farmer told the story of a cow that committed suicide out of boredom. A mile north, the beacons bow and resume what waltz the breeze allows. From the hill come herds of luminescent cattle. Kayaking the lips of Mermaid Isles estuary, I found the day locked tightly with the Atlantic's wild mercury mouth. They drank their bume and took what shellfish they pleased from the oyster catches darting across tiny islands. It began to rain, and the morning lapped at the ocean's hips. The world's alabaster skin and flesh of the air slowly parted as the sun broke between them. Soon enough we are all wet and need no clothes. She speaks in low, hoarse voices that charm droplets of rain to indent her waves and turn the back of the Atlantic into rolling sheets of pumice, encrusted with bejeweled seals, distant fishing boats in the seabirds scatter tattered glints of silver overhead, spirals of rain casting every which way, shaking up the winds.
Give it up for Ryan. Next up.